Hi, welcome to another video. So, DeepSeek V4 Pro is now officially available on their API, and in typical DeepSeek fashion, they just silently dropped it. There's no big launch event, no fancy live stream, and honestly, not even a ton of details about the model itself. They haven't shared much officially, but there is a benchmark table being shared around the internet with the model's official numbers, and the community has been digging up the rest. From what's circulating, this is reportedly a 1.6 trillion parameter model with 49 billion active parameters and a 1 million token context window. Take the exact specs with a grain of salt since DeepSeek themselves haven't been very loud about it, but that's what's floating around. The version that's live now is V4 Pro 0813, which is the proper release of the V4 Pro preview that we saw back in April. And the jump from that preview is honestly massive on Terminal Bench 2.1. The preview was sitting at 72.1, and this new release scores 87.9. That's basically a 15.8 point jump on the same benchmark, and it puts it right next to Fable 5 at 88 and Kimi K3 at 88.3. So it's basically neck and neck with the absolute frontier models on terminal work. Now, let's look at that official benchmark table that's going around, because it's actually quite interesting. On CyberGym, it scores 83.3, which is the best score on the whole table, just barely edging out Fable 5. On Automation Bench, it gets 31.8, which is also the best on the table, ahead of Kimi K3 and Fable 5. On HLE, it gets 42.7, without tools and 60, with tools which is behind Fable 5's 53.3 and 63, but still very respectable. Then on things like Deep Sway, Tuathlon, and the DS Bench evaluations, it's a few points behind Fable 5 and Opus 4.8, but it's playing in the same league. On NL2 Repo, Opus 4.8 still leads by a decent margin. So, the overall story from the official numbers is that this model is within a few points of the frontier on most agentic benchmarks, and it actually takes the top spot on a couple of them. But here's the thing that makes all of this crazy. The pricing. This model costs about 43 cents per million input tokens and 87 cents per million output tokens. Fable 5 is $10 and $50. That's why everyone, including the client team, is calling this the best price-to-performance model on the market right now, because you're getting roughly Fable 5 level benchmark performance at around 57 times cheaper cost. And that's just wild. But you know how it goes on. This channel, we don't just take the official numbers. I ran it through my own benchmark, so let's get right into it. As always, I ran it through my KingBench questions. These include some front-end and animation tasks, some 3JS tasks, an SVG test, a math problem, a long horizon agentic task, and one really hard 3D task at the end. Each question is scored out of 10, and at the end, we'll look at the final chart to see where it lands against the other models. The first question is the elevator simulation. The model has to build a simulation where you can spawn people on different levels. There are 3 elevators. Each elevator can only take one person, and anyone left behind should catch the next elevator that comes. Let's send it and see. Okay, this gets a 6 out of 10. The core simulation is there, and it looks decent, but the elevator logic isn't fully correct in all cases. For context, the Opus models are sitting at 10 here, and Fable 5 and Kimi K3 are at 9. But it's still a point better than V4 Flash, which got a 5. So it's a decent start, but not amazing. The second question is the 3JS contact lens case. It should be a 3D model of a contact lens case with pronounced L and R caps, and you should be able to click on the caps to open them up. This is a test where almost every model struggles. Let's send it and check. And this is an 8 out of 10. The case looks right, the caps are labeled properly, and the click to open interaction works. That ties it with QN 3.8 Max, Opus 5, and its own sibling V4 Flash. The third question is the 3JS folding table. There's a slider, and as you drag it to the right, the table should unfold, and to the left, it should fold back. It needs to be seamlessly animated and properly 3D. Let's send it. And this is a 9 out of 10. The folding motion is smooth, the animation is seamless, and the whole thing just works. That ties it with Fable 5, Kimi K3, GLM 5.2, and Sonnet 5 for the best score on this question, so this is quite great to see. The fourth question is the SVG of a panda eating a burger. Let's send it and see. And this one is a bit weak. It gets a 5 out of 10. The panda is recognizable, but the proportions are a bit off, and the burger interaction isn't really convincing. Interestingly, Muse Spark 1.2 got a perfect 10 on this one, and models like Kimi K3, GLM 5.2, and QN 3.8 Max are at 8, so SVG generation is clearly not this model's strong suit. The fifth question is the bow and arrow simulator game. 4 targets, and hitting all the targets in the lowest time should put the player on the leaderboard. Let's send it and check. Okay, this gets a 6 out of 10. The shooting mechanic works, and the targets are there. but the overall game feel and the leaderboard implementation aren't fully polished. The best models like Grok 4.5, QN 3.8 Max, and the Opus models are at 10 here, so this is just okay. The sixth question is the hard math problem about counting permutations of ordered pairs, and the answer should be 2460. A lot of models completely fail this one. Let's send it and see. And it gets it exactly right. 2460, full 10 out of 10. That puts it in the same club as Fable 5, Opus 4.8, Kimi K3, and QN 3.8 Max. So, the reasoning side is clearly strong. The seventh question is the big long horizon one. Generate a dataset of facts about pandas, finitune a Gemma 2B model on that dataset, and then build a local web UI that generates a panda fact on every refresh, all of it autonomously, from scratch, fully local. Let's send it and see. And it's a full 10 out of 10. It generated the dataset, ran the finitune, and served the whole thing through a local web UI without me having to intervene at any point. Most of the recent frontier models get a 10 here, and V4 Pro joins them without any drama. So, the agentic side is legit. The eighth and final question is the 3D wristwatch. A full working wristwatch in 3D that shows the actual current time with smooth second, minute, and hour hands, a date and day option, and 2 time zones. This is the hardest question on the bench, and no model had ever done well on it until recently. Let's send it. And believe it or not, this gets a 7 out of 10. That is the best score any model has ever gotten on this question. For context, Fable 5 held the best score for a long time with just a 4. Then V4 Flash and Muse Spark 1.2 pushed it to 6. And now V4 Pro takes the crown with a 7. The watch actually comes together as a proper 3D wristwatch, the hands track real-time smoothly, and the dual time zone option works. It's still not perfect, but this is genuinely impressive. So, this is the final chart, and DeepSeek V4 Pro ends up with 61 out of 80, which is 76.25%. That puts it in a tie with Muse Spark 1.2, just above GLM 5.2 at 75%, and its own sibling V4 Flash at 72.5%, and just below Kimi K3 and Opus 5, which are at 77.5%. Fable 5 is still at the top with 82.5%, followed by Quinn 3.8 Max and Opus 4.8. And just to put the generational jump in perspective, the V4 Pro preview scored 24.8% on my bench, so going from 24.8 to 76.25 is a markable step up from the previous versions. And at this price point, sitting this close to models that cost 10 to 50 times more is honestly crazy. Now, let me also tell you about my actual experience using it outside the benchmark, because the chart doesn't tell the full story here. First, the model still struggles with overthinking on simple problems. If you give it something trivial, it will sometimes sit there and reason about it way longer than it needs to, and that reasoning doesn't always help. In fact, this is where it gets interesting, because in real-life work, it's still sometimes worse than V4 Flash. Flash generally doesn't overthink that much, and even when it does overthink, it doesn't make mistakes because of it. The overthinking in Flash never really backfires. Here, it does. V4 Pro will sometimes think itself into a worse answer on a problem that Flash would have just solved directly. So, if you're doing simple day-to-day tasks, Flash might actually give you a better experience, which is a bit weird considering Pro is the bigger model. Second, the model is very overeager. It tries to fix simple stuff with complex methods. If there's a one-line fix, it might restructure half the file instead, add abstractions nobody asked for, and generally do way more than the task requires. And that makes it a not very good experience in some places, because you end up reviewing a bunch of changes you never wanted. But it's not all negative. The model is still remarkable in front-end work. The stuff it generates visually is genuinely on par with the frontier models, and you saw that with the folding table and the wristwatch scores. It's also really good in planning. When you give it a bigger task, the way it breaks things down and sequences the work is genuinely impressive. And one more thing that I really like. It's good at making sure that if the prompt is unclear, it asks for follow-ups instead of just running off and assuming things. A lot of models just guess and burn tokens going in the wrong direction. This one actually stops and asks, which saves you a lot of back and forth. So, what's the verdict? If you ask me, this is a really strong release, and at this price, it's honestly a no-brainer to at least try. It's a markable step up from the previous DeepSeek versions. The official benchmarks mostly hold up, and on my bench, it lands right in the frontier neighborhood at a fraction of the cost. It's not a Fable 5 killer, and the overthinking and overeagerness mean that for simple everyday tasks, V4 Flash might still serve you better, but for front-end planning and bigger agentic work, This is one of the best value models on the market right now. The best price to performance claim is not just marketing this time. Overall, it's pretty cool. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this video, consider donating through the Super Thanks option or becoming a member by clicking the Join button. Also, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye.